listening to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Fouché Way radio show, live every Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m., sponsored by the nonprofit organization called Canine Hope for Improvement Program, where we hope to improve the quality of our dogs' lives by moving towards a no-kill society. The number here is 818-602-4929. You know, from time to time, you will hear how scientists will link the similarities between wolves and dogs. And this is an attempt to further explain domestication. The newest of such attempts is an article in the LA Times, Science and How Dogs Evolved. And when scientists do so, it gives us a better understanding of the creatures that we have living in our homes. And this is wonderful from the concept of science. But what does this mean to you and I? How are we to interpret this scientific information so that it benefits us? And how can we translate this so we can humanize it successfully? See, we look into our eyes of our four-legged friends and see our own emotions reflected back at us. And because of that, we must humanize our dogs to a certain degree, because we are human, but only to a degree. Because we cannot ignore the fact that nature intended dogs to process information differently. And if we are to be successful, we must understand the language of the animal we are trying to communicate with. In many ways, aggression has been a wake-up call for many of us who have, been living in a state of what I call intelligent stupidity, because we don't know that dogs expected us to think like them. We wanted dogs to understand what we wanted from them, but they can only think like dogs. That's how nature wired them. Love and positive reinforcement from the concept of humans can and does create aggression, depending on the dog's interpretation of the act. Now, I know that's difficult to believe, but we are now finding that through mistakes of positive reinforcement, we are understanding the concept of leadership, discipline, and domestication from nature's point of view. And this truth is becoming self-evident with the lives that are being changed of the people who come on this show through a higher level of understanding. And so our first guest is Jennifer, and she has two lovely dogs named Byron and Zuzu. Jennifer, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Brandon.
Yes, I'm happy to have you on, and I want for you to tell our listeners about Byron and Zuzu. First, tell us, how you came to have Byron and Zuzu. I know one is 11 and one is 3.
Well, we had Byron. We kind of got him through a friend of a friend. He was found on the streets of New York, and we got him when he was a very little puppy, and he's now 11. Our dog Zuzu came to us a different way. She's also, a rescue animal, but she had been in a program where prison inmates train rescue dogs for adoption. And so her estimated age is around age 3, and we had adopted her back at the end of this past September. And everything was fantastic between the two dogs for 2.5 months. And then around the middle of December, Zuzu began attacking Byron fairly ferociously. The attacks were really frightening. And they were escalating, and it was right during Christmas time. And we were busy with, family and kids events and Santa Claus and all the things you're busy with at Christmas. And we had kind of thought, okay, we're going to contact Brandon as soon as the new year happens.
Now,
but on December...
Before that,
go
Jennifer, were you trying to talk with someone else? Did you seek help somewhere else? How did you, before you came to me? Or?
We had reached out to the people that we rescued the dog through. They had, actually said to us sometimes when this kind of aggression occurs between two dogs that nothing can be done except to rehome the aggressive dog.
I see.
And so we were just kind of hanging on to try to make it until another person who's a rescuer here in LA had recommended you, and we had also seen you on Yelp, and we were just hanging on till the new year to try and come work with you.
I see.
So, so that's kind of where we were. And the thing that was a mistake was waiting and not addressing it immediately, because on December 28th, the two dogs had a really big fight, and I was trying to pull them apart and got a bite on my hand, which was a small bite, but it ended up becoming very badly infected, and I spent 3 days in the hospital, and I'm still doing physical therapy to get the full use of my hand back.
Wow. When that kind of thing happens, if you have to spend time and you're going through therapy, that means you came very close to losing it.
It was. They told me there was a risk of amputation when I came into the ER. So thankfully they were able to save my finger and my hand, and day by day it's getting better. So I'm really thankful for that.
That's great.
But all that said, we have experienced a remarkable turnaround with both dogs since we have been working with you, and I am so glad we decided to give Zuzu a chance and try to learn to speak her language and understand her as a dog, and the same with our other dog Byron, because things have turned around completely in our household with the dogs.
Well, what I want to talk about, because our listeners are listening, it's very important. There is a formula that I have with the evaluation, and that is that you bring the dog into me, and we have a quick evaluation when you bring him in, and then we have another one when you pick him up.
Right.
And it's really important when you're talking to people. I'm actually, along with evaluating the dog, I'm also evaluating the family.
Right.
And usually when you're having problems with two dogs fighting in the home, we tend to think that this is a problem between the two dogs.
Right.
And it is, but it isn't. It is a lifestyle problem. It's a problem between the whole pack, the entire family that's involved. And as I mentioned earlier about understanding the language of dogs, it's our duty, And if we can't come outside of the box or to get out of our comfort zone to understand what's happening here, then we're going to fail. We're going to fail the two dogs. And you brought the dog to me thinking that Zuzu, the younger of the dog, was the problem because it was the one that was attacking Byron.
Right.
And I mentioned to you that it was not that. It was actually Byron that was the problem.
Yep.
And how did you feel when I told you that?
When you explained things to me, it was like everything was brought into focus. It's like looking at one of those pictures where the question is it an old lady or is it a young, beautiful woman? I don't know if you've ever seen those kind of pictures. And once someone explains it to you so you can see the other, the old lady instead of the young lady, then you can't stop seeing it. So once you explained it to me, it was crystal clear. But until then, I think we had been approaching it completely the wrong way.
Exactly. And this is what I mean by dogs misinterpreting our intentions, because we expect for them to understand what we want from them. And in this case, we don't want you to fight. Okay?
Right.
But what the dog is seeing is, oh, this is something that you want me to do. And let's tell our listeners why. You know, Byron is a dog that you've had for 11 years, so you have a specific history with him.
Right. He came to us probably, he was found on the streets. My suspicion, based on when he lost his baby teeth, is he was separated too young from his mother.
Okay.
And he has either a genetic predisposition to nervousness and shakiness, and or he, his fear imprint was made when he was young, and he's always just been an extremely high-strung, nervous dog. Sweet dog, but nervous. Prone to bark at the doorbell, prone to bark at, neighbors who he's seen a million times, just kind of high-strung and nervous. And we had never known how to deal with that exactly. We'd hush Byron, stop it, stop barking or whatever, but that never worked.
Right.
And so when Zuzu came, I think she just thought she would correct him for us,
Exactly.
Because we were not effective with what we were doing to correct him.
And you couldn't see that at first.
No, exactly.
This dog, Zuzu, is in a higher position than Byron because of his genetic condition. Automatically, that's how it is.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And when Zuzu saw that you, the leader, you, your husband, the kids, could not control Byron's neurotic behavior, she saw this as her job.
Exactly.
And when she saw that you couldn't control it, she tries to please you by becoming that leader over Byron. To the point of doing what she did to him.
Right.
She believed that that was her job. And so when you understand it in this way, and when I explained it to you, you saw it just as clear as crystal. Okay? That now, when you learned how to control Byron through the concept of discipline, domination, and leadership, then she says, oh, you've got it under control. I'm going to submit to you as well as Byron submitting to you, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And so how do you feel now with this family, this pack?
It has just been night and day. I mean, I would say both dogs have shown a 90% improvement in their behavior, and we have not had any additional fights, and they both seem to really respect my authority, and all I have to do now is just snap my fingers and point, and they both do exactly what they're supposed to do. I mean,
That's
as
great.
soon as anything happens. I mean, just one quick snap, and there's no barking at the door. There's no, there's nothing.
Right.
So,
and the interesting point here too with that, I didn't want to forget it, is that like most people, when you come to me and you have the consultation, we always think, oh my gosh, I have to spend this money.
Yep.
I
mean, right after the holidays, you're like, oh gosh, I wish we didn't have to spend this much right now, or could this wait? But that, I mean, we look at that as money well spent. Some of the best dollars we've ever spent on restoring peace to our household and making the situation work with both dogs. We love our older dog Byron, who's been with us for 11 years, but by the time Zuzu had been with us for 3 months as well, we were all four of us were completely attached to her, and we were very invested in making the situation work for our family. So it seems like a small price to pay to have, peace and harmony and happy dogs and happy kids in our household.
Yeah, people are always asking me, Brandon, how do you do this and how do you do that? And that's cool. But why I do it is so important. When you think about the amount of time that you've been going through this problem and the time that you had these dogs, and then to come and see me with this knowledge for things to turn around so quickly, it almost seems impossible.
It seemed impossible to me prior to seeing you. In fact, the day before I came to see you, I was trying to walk both dogs, and it was a completely chaotic walk. They were pulling me. I didn't have good control. And I thought to myself as I was walking them, I was like, okay, so we're going to have to see Brandon to get the aggression under control, and then I'm going to have to get a trainer also to help me with this leash work. Mm-hmm. And instead, you helped me with all of it, and the very next day after seeing you, I had a walk with both dogs completely in control, walking behind me with mm-hmm. loose leashes. And I did not believe that was possible the day before. I did not believe it was possible.
And, I want to say this because, every dog is different, just like every person. And what I may tell you would possibly be different from someone else.
Right.
But whatever it is that I tell you to do, you're still going to have to work. I mean, this is not a very easy thing to do. It is difficult because we're dealing with emotions,
Yep.
And I mean, tell the people. I mean, what you're saying sounds great. It sounds magical. And
yep.
What is it difficult or is it easy? And what do you think about that?
Well, it's difficult in the sense, like I'm a mother of two. I'm a dog lover. Mm-hmm. I think my disposition naturally is to be more like soothing and nurturing and mm-hmm. loving, and not to necessarily be, quite so harsh
mm-hmm.
With the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Although, as you said to me, I mean, not that I'm always harsh, but to do what's necessary to make them recognize me as a leader. Right. That was a little bit out of my comfort zone, to take some of those steps to make them understand, okay, I am your leader, not just someone who comes in and snuggles. And as you said to me when we first met, alphas are not out in the wild handing out treats. So,
exactly.
you have to kind of shift away from, oh, aren't you cute little cuddly, love
mm-hmm.
muffin or whatever, into, I am your leader, I'm the head of this pack, and you will follow me. And it is difficult to step out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have to spend, some time and energy every day fairly intensively for the first week or two,
mm-hmm.
Following up and making sure that I was doing the steps that you gave me
mm-hmm.
that applied to my situation with my two dogs. But what you told me to do wasn't that hard. It mm-hmm. just was doing it and following through with it. And thankfully, you were available on the phone to kind of talk me through some issues that arose, and also my own, tendency to want to fall back into that nurturing role rather
right.
than the leadership role.
Yeah, it's important. So, I don't want people to think that they come, they get what they came for, they go home, it's working, and then the disconnect takes place. I mean, it's not going to work that way, because you have a habit too, and you will slip,
right.
and that's why you got to stay plugged in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, and keep working the program.
And keep working the program.
Yeah.
And now let me ask you, based on what you thought before, all the positive reinforcement and stuff that you were doing, and then the things that I told you had to do, and now that you've done everything, do you have more than what you had before, or less? Or the same?
I think we have, I would say more. I mean, it's definitely different, but I think our house is so much more peaceful
mm-hmm.
without Byron going nuts every time the doorbell rings,
mm-hmm.
or someone drops off a package or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both dogs feel much more secure,
mm-hmm.
and obviously we don't have the chaos of the two of them starting to fight. So
right.
it's more, and you can still love the dogs. I mean, you know when the appropriate time to do that is, and it's not all the time. You have to call them to you, and you have to establish yourself as a leader
mm-hmm.
before you are, a lover, I guess, is how I would put it.
That's exactly. And there's one thing I want you to remember, Jennifer, as anyone that has gone through what you've gone through. It's something that I do. From time to time, I'll look at an area where I was bitten. And that
mm-hmm.
bite will remind me of everything that I must do to prevent this from happening again. Okay?
Exactly.
And that's my
exactly.
advice. That's my advice to you.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Good advice.
thank you very much, Jennifer, for coming on and sharing with us your journey with Byron and Zuzu. And we will be following up on you to make sure that everything is still working. And keep calling me to tell me what's happening. Okay?
Okay. Thank you so much, Brandon.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Our next guest is Abby Chang, and Abby has a beautiful dog named Nakota. How are you today, Abby?
Good, Brandon. Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. You know, there are many people that are like you that have a dog that is actually controlling their life in every aspect, okay?
Yes.
And we tend to live with this sort of thing for many, many years. And I asked you a question before. You've been dealing with Nakota for how long now?
He'll be 11 in April. I've had him since he was 1, and so I've been dealing with it for almost 10 years.
Okay. If you had came to me and I told you that I could help you with Nakota, but it's going to take you 11 years to get there, you wouldn't have done it.
Probably not.
You wouldn't have done it. And it's interesting that when I give people the option of the Fouché way and the traditional training and positive reinforcement and clickers and all of that, sometimes it's very difficult for people to make the change. But then when I ask them to look at it that way, you've been practicing those things for 11 years.
Yes.
Okay? So you can do it. And when we think about Nakota, well, tell the people about Nakota. Tell us about him and what he's been doing.
Nakota, he's a pit bull Rottweiler mix.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I've had him since he was 1. And he started being very reactive to other dogs during our walks after a few months. So right away I thought, okay, I need to get obedience training for this dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so in, all this time we've worked with 3 private trainers, and we've worked with a well-known aggression specialist. We've gone to group obedience classes nonstop for over 2 years, and we've done group off-leash socialization classes with one of the trainers. I was taught to use positive reinforcement like praise and treats. I was taught to use distractors and physical activity to manage his behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried holistic flower essences. I've tried the thunder shirt and every kind of collar available.
Wow.
Nakota is really smart,
Mm-hmm.
and he's really stubborn. He's learned every command very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But almost 10 years later, I have this neurotic dog that's not socialized. He's unhappy, and he's still reactive.
Mm.
So obviously, the traditional training methods aren't effective with aggression issues.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting that, all these years, I'm sure you've had more than one trainer, and so there must have been some variation in the techniques that kept you switching and going. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would try whatever I was taught for at least a year, and then I would kind of just be on my own, and then his aggression would get worse, so I would, try to find somebody else. The first trainer moved out of state, so which is why then we tried the aggression specialist, and then I had to find another trainer, and then we didn't work with the trainer for many, many years, probably about 4 or 5 years, because I just decided to just adjust my lifestyle. I would just drive him to the park where we could avoid other dogs. Although out here a lot of dogs are off leash, so we run into problems that way, but I would just drive to the park really early in the morning, and then just I still wanted him to go out every day, but I didn't want to have to walk him on the sidewalk. So we did that for about 4 or 5 years, and I was managing his behaviors. And it got to the point, I think at the end of 2011, I just didn't want to have to manage it anymore. So I found another trainer, and she was really helpful, but he's still reactive. So I actually heard about you through the Pit Bull Rescue Group, where I adopted a dog in October.
Okay.
And so I checked out your website. I watched your video seminar several times.
Okay. Good.
And I listened to your, old radio shows, and
Okay.
then I requested a consultation with you because everything that you said just made sense, and it was actually really comforting to hear all these people who had the same experience with their dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not
That
the only
I was
one.
not the only one that had to adjust their lifestyle and,
Exactly.
make all these accommodations for their dog's behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually met just this last Saturday.
Right.
Yeah, and the reason why I decided to try to work with Nakota's issues again is because my new dog is not reactive, and I can take her anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, with Nakota's age, I just want him to have the same experiences as Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to limit him because of the routine I created for both of us.
Okay.
So that's why I reached out to you.
Okay, so you are a person that's actually coming to me with a trail of knowledge from other experts. And
Yeah.
so you pretty much have heard pretty much everything that's out there, in terms of what to do. And in the aggression specialist that you mentioned, what were some of the techniques that were used? Because I'm always interested in whoever is dealing with aggression. What techniques were used to control him?
To show my dominance, I had to put him in a submissive position.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
had
mean like physically?
Yes.
Okay.
And that made Nakota so angry and even more aggressive.
Okay. So you're talking
But
about
I kept doing it.
Yeah, you're talking about flipping him over. Is that what you're talking about?
Putting him on his side.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Because he, if he didn't submit to me himself and put himself on his side, I had to do it.
Okay.
Lots of just intense exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a 6-month period when I would take him on 1.5 to 2 hour long walks during the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was told that would calm him and make him more balanced. And, I don't think it worked for him. He liked it,
Mm-hmm.
but walks are just very stressful for me. So
Mm-hmm.
to have to do that for 2 hours, it was really, really stressful for me. And I didn't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I just took him out because I wanted to help him. But I always had this anxiety of, are we going to run into a dog that's going to set him off today?
Right.
And, because he's redirected onto me.
Mm.
And he has gotten into fights with other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, I've limited his interaction with other dogs because of it, because it always ends up in scuffles and fights. And,
Okay.
I get the other dog owners, they get really upset with me
Mm-hmm.
because I have this out-of-control dog. So I just have really limited his interaction. His interaction is usually more controlled, so with some of the other trainers' dogs, or, it's on leash in a class. But, I tried taking him to the dog park a couple of years ago, and I had to stop because he went after a boxer and bit down on his leg and wouldn't let go. So, but, luckily the injuries weren't serious, but it scared me to death, and, obviously the other dog owner was not happy about it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I want to say this because you've talked about some things that I've spoken on previous shows about exercising being overrated.
Yes.
We tend to think that through exercise, like this day, July, 24th, 2013, all of a sudden the aggression is going to go away because we ran so many miles or we did so many agility courses, And what we're really actually doing is we're pumping the heart up and we're producing more of the prey drive. So exercise is very overrated. The fact that you pinned your dog down is an indication that he didn't submit. You forced him into that submission. So that's a physical control, which means that you're not mentally in his mind yet. Okay? Mm-hmm. There is a time to do that, but not the way you were doing it, or that you may not even have to do it. So a lot of these techniques of discipline and domination, and when people hear me say these words, they're probably referring to what you're talking about. But now that you've known me, you know that those things are not what I'm talking about. And I'm not asking you to do any of the things that you have done in the past. Is that correct?
Yes, completely different approach.
Yeah. And now tell us how you feel about Nakota.
It's, it's still a work in progress, but I noticed changes the night that we got home from your facility. Like right away, he started walking the way he should, the first attempt. And I wasn't sure when I left your place if he would do that for me without you and Leroy there.
Right, exactly.
But, we just walked down to the mailbox, and he walked the way he should.
Right.
So that was surprising to me. And, every day since Saturday, there's been a few things really significant in terms of changes in his behavior, how he responds to me. Yesterday morning, it was a big morning because he walked by a dog in my neighborhood on my street. We were across the street, and he didn't react.
Has that ever happened? Has that ever happened before?
It has happened, but very rarely. Very, very, very rarely. Like just last Thursday, he went ballistic when we walked by a German Shepherd across the street. In my neighborhood. So for him to go from that to there wasn't even any tension on the leash. He looked at the dog, and we walked by, and then he shook himself off to release that tension, and I just kept walking. And normally, from what I've been taught before, I would have just showered him with praise and treats. But, I remembered what you taught me, so I didn't show any emotion. I didn't say a word to him. I saw his reaction, and then I just kept walking.
Right.
And then we actually passed that dog a second time, and we were also across the street, and he didn't even look over the second time.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, that was yesterday morning. I was so excited. So excited. I had to come home and text you. I was telling you that, I was jumping up and down on the inside.
And, we have to tell our listeners, this is a dog that growling at you if you move your foot in the bed.
Yes.
Stubborn, grabbing the leash, shaking it out of your hand. I mean, tell them the things that he did. I mean...
Oh, there's so many things.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, his usual reaction is to whip his head around, to bite the leash, to pull it, and, shake his head. And if my hand is there, my arm, my leg, sometimes he'll get me.
Right.
There have been a few times when the redirection is intentional.
Oh, of course.
When because I was holding onto the leash, and he would just turn and bite me on the leg. He does not, I don't know if I kicked him once or twice, but if I even just move my foot in the bed, he growls at me, and he'll jump off the bed and then jump back on and reposition his body where he's not so close to me.
As if, what are you doing in the bed?
What?
As if he's saying, what are you doing in my spot?
Yeah. And he, when he first started sleeping on my bed, he would just kind of be, just take a small amount of space. And then he eventually just took over the whole bed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't move him. If I moved him, he got mad at me.
Right. And this is serious, people. There are a lot of people who get hurt like this. Obviously, Nakota hasn't really gotten to that point, but he's already lost his bite inhibition. And, you really have to let this dog know that you are in charge. And there is no amount of positive reinforcement that you can do that's going to stop that. I mean, this is like we trick ourselves. We can look into our dog's eyes, as I mentioned before, and see our own emotions reflected back at me. And Nakota's the kind of dog, you can look at his eyes, and he does this thing with his ears, and it's like, I'm just the saddest thing. Right? Am I right, Abby?
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't feel like I've ever let him get away with bad behavior, but the first thing I learned from you, this was before you even evaluated him, just from you questioning me about, my relationship with Nakota, I was, speechless because I found out that I was actually not disciplining him the way a dog would understand it.
Exactly.
So I always thought I, would reprimand him verbally. And, so if he did growl at me, I kicked him off the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would do the thing with the ears and the sad eyes. And so then I would soothe him because I thought I scared him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I hurt his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned this to you a couple of days ago because I've been having these aha moments every day, like where things just kind of click and finally make sense.
Right.
So I realized that whenever he shows me that body language, he's actually submitting to me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I didn't realize he was submitting to me. I thought he was just hurt. I
Yeah.
thought his feelings were hurt. So then, in effect, all this love and affection, which you told me, boosts the dog's confidence,
Mm-hmm.
just, perpetuated the cycle of neurotic behavior and aggression.
Mm-hmm.
You told me a confident dog is not a subordinate dog to its human.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, so I learned a lot from you
Mm-hmm.
just in that first consultation. He doesn't respect me
Right.
at all.
And this is very important, Abby, to you and most women, because if it weren't for rescue organizations, if it weren't for women that are involved with these rescue organizations, I mean, there'd be a lot of dogs that are dead today, And with women like yourself, you're a professional woman. I believe you're in the field of psychology, right?
Yeah, I work with children with special needs.
Right. And when people like you, you're never going to stop rescuing and dealing with dogs.
No.
But when people like you, women like you that understand this concept, because, all the guys always think, oh, the women are always doing the hugging and the loving and all of that. And that may be true, but that's only because you're not getting the kind of information that's making you think and choose between training, love and affection, and leadership. You didn't know how that worked in the animal world. And
yeah, I didn't know that me comforting him to try to make him feel more secure and safe was actually confusing him, and he saw that as a weakness.
Right. Yeah, he truly did. But now, in this very short period of time, I mean, for you, this has got to seem like a miracle.
Yes.
That you have gotten control of this guy. Now, it's not over with, and it's not easy.
For sure, because he even though he had a great morning yesterday, the rest of the day, because he's stubborn.
Yeah.
He's stubborn, so he was a little bit more snarky with my other dog.
Right.
And he, in the middle of the night, he tried to jump up on the bed twice.
Right.
Like back to back. I pushed him off, and then he jumped right back on, and I had to push him off again.
Mm-hmm.
So, yesterday he was, not doing as much as what he should have been doing, even though he didn't react to the dog on the walk.
Right.
But I put him in his place.
Yeah, I want you to continue. And what you have learned, I've said before, I believe it was in my last show, that dogs must feel the same way at the same time for the same reason, to be a pack. And now that you have been doing this, your relationship between your two dogs have changed.
Yeah. Well, my relationship with the new dog.
No, I mean the two dogs' relationship.
Oh, the two dogs' relationship.
Yeah.
Yes. They actually, there's more physical closeness between the two of them. Yeah, so that first night, which is why I had to send you that picture, because when I saw it, I couldn't believe it. Nakota's he touched his nose to Maggie's body when they were sleeping next to each other. And they usually will, try their best to avert their heads. They will fully turn their heads so they, aren't that close,
right,
even if some other body part is touching. So I had to take a picture of that. And then, the other night, and I missed that photo moment,
right.
Maggie was actually using Nakota's body as a pillow for her head. I couldn't even believe it. I mean, and Nakota just tolerates it. He normally doesn't like, Maggie being on top of him, on his legs or anything, any part of his, her body touching on top. He doesn't like it. So for him to be able to tolerate that, it's a huge step for him.
Yeah, he doesn't have a sense of entitlement anymore. You got the control, and he's doing it. Well, you know, Abby, our time is rolling, and we have one more caller, but I want you to stay informed, and we're going to keep checking with you to make sure that things are going right, and I want you to continue to call me because, you know, we want to keep you on the right track, okay?
Okay, thank you
All
so
right,
much,
thank you
Brandon.
very much, Abby. Our next caller is Martine with Jira. Martine, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
how are you?
I'm fine. You're no stranger to our show. You've been on before, but I had to have you on today because, you know, there's so much going on in your life. I don't want to talk too much. I just want you to tell us what you're feeling, and then I'm going to jump in because I want to ask you about how come other people aren't getting this, and I want you to be as truthful with me as you can. So what's happening now? How's your life?
Okay. Well, my life is fantastic. I came back from spending that 2 weeks with you and having Jura, go through the process. And I came back and I went to a dog park, and immediately I could feel myself a little nervous, like, am I really going to be able to do this? And it was great. And then basically what's happened is it's a new relationship, and I doubted it a little bit in the beginning when I first got back, stepping into being a leader in the way that I needed to be. So I kind of watched myself because I could see that Jura was, she was used to this new relationship. So I would just describe it as the way I feel around her is we have a closeness that I didn't have before. She totally respects me. She hasn't shown any signs of aggression at all.
Right. So she's great with the dogs. Yeah.
Huge.
Okay.
Huge. A whole year where she attacked every dog that she saw.
Now I want to say this. I'm really anxious because when people make changes like you, it gives me an opportunity to express the kind of relationships that I have with my dog, but through my clients. And your relationship now, I can ask you about those things that you didn't want to tell me at first, or those things that you hid from me, because there's many times I'm talking to people and I'll say to myself, did she just lie to me? And I got to let you get away with it sometimes because obviously you're not ready to open up. And you were talking to a friend of yours. You went by her house and she had a dog, and tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So just last week I went over to see a friend. She has a beautiful, very large male shepherd. He's about 5 years old. And the first thing I noticed when I walked in is the dog came. She knew I loved shepherds, so she let it come to the door. Otherwise, she said she keeps it crated away from people. But it came to the door, and it was just in my face and wouldn't let me move in. It wasn't aggressive, but it was totally in charge. So she took about 5 minutes trying to pull it away from the door, telling it to come. It wasn't listening at all. So we sat down, had a cup of coffee, and we were talking, and she explained to me that he's like her baby, and she has no kids at home, and so she has this relationship that's really important. But as I told her about you and what you did and how my relationship is with Jura now, she was really, really interested. So we kept talking, and then we got to a point where I explained to her that she would need to follow through and do what you said, and that would include taking away toys and things like that. And he has a huge shepherd, a stuffed animal. It's a shepherd. And he takes it and walks it around the house and shakes it all over the place. And so when I started telling her, getting deeper into some of the stuff she would have to do for the commitment to get what she wanted on the other side, I could see her start to back up and think that she couldn't do it. And what I wanted to share with anybody who's listening is that that's exactly how I felt. This was a really big deal for me to move forward into leadership and to make that commitment, because I thought I was going to lose that close relationship I had with my dog.
Wow.
But actually what's happened is I have a much closer relationship. It's very consistent. It's she's relaxed. I'm relaxed. She gets to go out and be around other dogs. I mean, it's pretty much like a miracle.
We keep hearing these words, relax, and that's great because people need to hear that. Because I'm hearing from your friend there, she started to get more tense the more you talk.
Exactly. First she said, give me his number. I'm very interested. I really want to do it.
Yeah.
And then as we talked and went into the depth of what it was going to be, you could truly see that she was afraid that she would lose that sweetness that she felt that she had with him. He was a big sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is with Jura, it was exactly the same. I used to give Jura pets all the time. I used to feel really, close to her. But ever since I came back and we have this new relationship where it's consistently I'm the leader, I get so much more genuine connection from her.
Mm-hmm.
And
without the food, because you were feeding
satisfying.
her. You were feeding her
Pardon?
just like a person. I said, without the food, you were feeding her, and she was gaining weight just like a person.
Yes,
I mean, it was
was
treats every second, right? I mean, we can tell the truth now because we're beyond that. You're not so embarrassed now,
Oh no, I got it. Sure, absolutely. I had to commit to being really honest, really transparent,
right,
and really take a look at what was I doing, what was I trying to feed for myself,
right.
And when I had this dog that would attack every dog, and you're telling me that it's me that was actually creating that,
yeah, you can't.
Then I had to step up and make those changes.
Yeah.
And I will say that it was actually, I was listening to Jennifer earlier, and I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a mother, I have a real nurturing side. That's really a part of who I am and what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was so difficult for me to feel like I could be a leader. I felt I was going to lose that. There was something that I was actually afraid of to step into that role.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to, again, encourage anybody out there that it doesn't last long.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I had to step into that and very strongly, and then I got a chance to kind of just, we moved into we have a new level now in our relationship, and I don't have any doubts now. It's a done deal, and that's the part I wanted to get to, because my history is that I've been working with you for years,
right.
And you actually helped my daughter be the first 4 years with Jura, be the alpha and be the leader.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened. It was like I was looking at you and how Milena was, and I had to figure out a way to be for myself. And it was really, really uncomfortable. And I had to get honest.
Yeah.
Had to get honest.
You have to get honest.
With myself, get honest.
Right. And you were actually dishonest for years. Because when you think,
I was.
When you think about it now and the level where you are now, when you finally committed to the things that I've asked you to do, this thing changed overnight.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
In all those years, you were still living in denial, giving me half-truths about what was really happening. Right? I got you on the spot now.
True.
It's
true.
Yeah, people got to hear this, man. I mean, you saved this dog. Mm-hmm.
Well, I've had dogs all my life, and I had this feeling, like I said, again, what Jennifer said, where it just felt like I wanted a loving relationship with my dog. I had to wrap around the concept of what was this different way of being a leader. Mm-hmm. And I'm very kinesthetic, and so for me personally, I had to actually get it in my body. And so what happens now with Jura is I don't have to do anything. Her hormones change, and it's a energy, and it's a way of being in my body that she just knows. I mean, she gives me these beautiful doe eyes all the time, and I hardly do a thing.
Mm-hmm. You believe it now.
She didn't take me seriously, and that's what you kept telling me, is that I wasn't stepping it up. I would say I was, and I really wasn't.
Right.
And that was the turning point, was just, committing 100%.
Right. All because you felt that you would lose something that you thought you had that you never really had with your dog. That's
Absolutely
why you always
true.
got to feed it. That's why we always got to feed it. That's why we say sit, and we want to give that treat. We want to say good girl. And then the dog says, okay, I sat. Give me the treat. Or I laid down. Give me this. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. And we create that in our dogs. And we're okay
Absolutely.
with that because we're getting something too. But what you're getting...
Well, I'm thankful for the aggression to wake me up. I'm thankful for it, not for her to have to have gone through it, because I think it was hard, and I know it was hard for our whole pack. But I'm thankful because it was such a clear sign, like you talk about aggression being the clearest form of communication.
Right.
I actually see that. I see that now.
It woke you up.
So, pardon?
It woke you up.
It woke me up, and I knew that I wanted that relationship. I was committed on a certain level,
right.
Not 100% maybe, But what happened is I took her ball away. I took away chasing her and playing with her, and when I go to the dog park and I see people have a ball, and she started to go up to it in the beginning, look at it, pick it up, and then I would say, hey, and she'll drop it. Right. But now she doesn't even go to the balls. She watches these dogs being neurotic, running all over the place, and she's having a good time. Yeah. But she's not matching their level. She's not going up to a 10. Right. She's staying, and she's happy, relaxed, and we have an incredible relationship.
And what's even more beautiful is that you've gotten out of this more than what you ever thought that you were going to get. You wanted it, but you got it now.
Yeah, and I called you the other day to just tell you that one of the things that was so wonderful about this is having myself move through this fear that I had that was so huge and step into the leadership role has actually affected every part of my life, all the areas of my life. And so I did know this was an important thing to do, but I just, without your way of showing me, which, it's pretty impressive, your success rate. Yeah. I had to just kind of let go of everything and listen to you and say, okay, just totally tell me what to do. And like you said, I didn't lie to you. I just said, okay, I'll call you and I'll follow through. That's when it really happened. There's a consistency and something that, Shira knows now. She knows where she is. She knows where she is in the pack. She's really comfortable around all types of dogs, and it's just this wonderful freedom. It's a freedom that I didn't know I was going to be able to have.
Well, I want to tell you that you make me so happy because I'm able to express and tell my story through the people that come on the show that are making it to the level that you are now, okay? These are my experiences, the things that you have gone through. I have gone through all of these things. And we will be talking more and more on the show with different people. And I will be able to express my feelings and my journey through my life with all my dogs, with all of the aggression that we're going to be talking about for the many times that we're going to be on the air. And so this makes me happy when someone is rising to this level and paying attention. I can't tell you how much more enjoyment and love that you're going to get in the years to come. And I'm just so happy. And I can't believe the time is rolling. Well, Martine, I want to say thank you. Keep it up with Jira. I want to thank Jennifer. I want to thank Abby for coming on and telling our listeners your journey. And I want you to tune in next time, Thursday, 1 o'clock p.m. on the Fouché Way radio show. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.